So my name is Jonathan Betts. I'm Director and Co-founder of Science Warehouse. My background's in technology, and I've been working specifically within procurement technology with it for the last 15 years. So during that time, I've had the privilege to work with some great procurement people, procurement professionals, and to speak to many, many more, many of them that don't want to speak to me on the end of the phone. But nevertheless, I think that puts us in a good position where I've got that experience and had that ability to engage with so many different individuals. So the talk today is entitled Procurement Surge Taking Purchasing to the Next Level. The core of the content is very much focused on the survey that we did with eWorld Purchasing Supply. It's our third annual survey, looking at developments in the procurement space and the challenges for the year ahead. And coming out of that is very much the fact that 2013 was certainly a year of progress based on the responses we had in the survey. We'll also look at the drivers for procurement in the year ahead, what we found within there. And there's very much an element, given away in the title of the talk, that things have moved on, certainly based on the baseline of our results from previous years. So that's all around shifting gear. What does that mean? What does that look like? And where is it taking us to? I'll put Q&A at the end. I think we may not have time for questions and answers, but obviously very pleased to answer questions directly, or the rest of my team are down, or up actually, on our stand on the main floor at the bottom of the stairs you come down from the Mountbatten room. So a little bit about Science Warehouse. So we are a Leeds-based organisation. Nice shot of our offices there. We're in a converted railway roundhouse there in Leeds, and as you can see, it's always sunny with little white fluffy clouds in the sky there. We've been helping organisations with their procurement decision making since 2000. Ultimately, that's about providing and delivering and helping deliver savings, compliance and spend intelligence for those organisations. What we do is very much data focused and user focused, and around driving and enabling organisations to deliver against their targets in procurement. We tend to work with larger dispersed types of organisations, whether it's in the likes of R&D or construction or healthcare or education, essentially where you've got lots of what you might call casual users running around, where it's challenging to actually get them to be compliant with procurement practice. So we're helping them out. So it's often quite technical specifiers, engineers and clinicians or scientists and the like. So that's a little bit about us. As I say, if you want to find out more about our products and the business, two of my team are at the back there actually, and they're down on the stand, so I'm sure they'll welcome discussion later. So, Procurement Trends 2014. As I said, this is the third year that we've done the survey, working with eWorld Purchasing and Supply. I went to Andrew Bartolini's talk earlier today. He had a similar survey, which was interesting, and a lot of the results are quite analogous. I've got some information about the survey response. I think the key thing here is that the survey database is very much, or should be very much, similar to the people in the room, because it's eWorld's database that's used to draw the respondents from. So we did the survey. It was an online survey at the end of 2013, in December. The respondents were split 60% private sector, 40% public sector. And more than three quarters of the respondents had over 5 years experience within procurement. So it's a very experienced group of people that were engaged in the survey. The sizes of organisations, there's a whole range there, but about half of them were 1,000 plus staff. There's everything from small right through to very large organisations. And in terms of spend they manage, 60% of them manage 25 million. Up to 25 million of indirect spend, of 40% more. So that gives you a bit of a flavour of the survey itself.
Just UK, sorry, or Europe? Or?
The respondents were almost entirely UK. There's some Europe, some Australasia, some USA, but I'd say 90%, well, it is 90% UK, yeah. So, Procurement's Mojo returns. That was the key message coming out of the survey. And this was demonstrated in the intentions of businesses to invest in their procurement capability. So I picked out a couple of the highlights here. The first one is around technology investment. So you can see going back to 2012 and 2013, it's fairly flat, but that's jumped up by a significant amount between last year and this year, up to nearly half of organisations have an intention to invest in technology, which is obviously fantastic for a procurement technology company, but I think it's clearly organisations recognising and looking to take their capability to that next level using technology as part of that. The other factor which is really interesting is investment in training. This is the area which grew the most out of any of the factors we looked at. It was actually up 84%. So again, I think this is again all about bringing that procurement capability up to the next level within organisations to be able to take on the demands. Some of those we'll come on to look at that we picked up in the survey, and be able to cope with the pressures that procurement departments are actually facing. And there's also a question there, I think, if we did this survey frequently enough and looked often enough, whether, because it sort of reflects what's happening in the economy as a whole. Suddenly the green shoots are coming up and flourishing. I think potentially if you look at organisations' investment intentions for procurement, then it could be actually a leading indicator for the economy as a whole. If we look at actually what happened last year in terms of performance amongst these organisations, one of the questions we asked is what percentage of your indirect spend is under management. We all know, of course, how important that is as a factor in managing procurement activity. And again, we found that procurement moved up a gear. So compliance has, in that, so the category over on the right there, looking at the number of organisations with 60% or more of their, that's the most important one to look at there, 60% or more of their spend under management has increased by 17%, so grown to the level that we've shown there. So I think that shows an actual shift in results, which again, something we hadn't seen in the previous couple of years in the survey. Of course, we know clearly why that is important, because every pound that is brought under management drives out a saving. It differs by organisation depending on where they are in their maturity and their level of procurement capability, but that's clearly an important factor. But looking at where are the challenges, what sectors are seen as facing the most challenges, that was one of the questions we asked. Which sectors are facing the biggest challenges within procurement? So this is looking at your peers really and seeing what their position is. So last year, and the same result this year, government, so this includes central and local government, comes out as 34%, seen as being the most challenging sector. And I believe this is really comes back to the whole austerity programme that's still very much alive. If anything, it's getting more challenging, I think, for a lot of the organisations in the public sector. They've been giving very aggressive targets, both to reduce the spend, to deliver savings, and also to make savings within their own departments as well. So it is a challenging environment. Manufacturing, interestingly, that's came out as second most challenging environment for procurement. That has moved up to second place. I think it was third last year, but it's not a huge shift. But you might say, well, manufacturing, surely that's an area that's recovering. That's what we hear about in the economy. But I suppose from a procurement point of view, the challenges are still there when an organisation is expanding. It's a different set of challenges, and clearly the cost pressures are massively there within those organisations. And healthcare, of course, we hear about that pretty much every day in the news, don't we? So almost whenever you switch on the news, there's some story about a trust or a hospital or whatever that has in financial problems, financial challenges, and this is clearly driving challenges within the procurement space, where procurement is tasked with delivering those savings and helping to rescue those organisations that are in trouble. So we also asked in the survey, what is the savings target for 2014? And broke down as follows. So 3/4 of organisations had up to a 10% savings target they need to deliver. 25% were above that level. Of the 75%, or in fact half, 48% of all respondents have to deliver between a 6% and a 10% savings target, which is it's interesting comparing that to the figures Andrew was showing this morning, where it was about 7 or 8% for the 7.7, yeah. So it obviously falls in that range. So within our, as I say, largely UK survey, there is very equivalent sort of savings levels that our procurement departments have been asked to deliver. Last year, based on the results, 27% of those who responded delivered a 10% savings or more. So that's a question I raised up is, does that mean it's in the bag? I don't think so, because actually cost reduction is one of those self-limiting aspects. So clearly if you delivered the saving last year, so say a 10 million saving on 100 million spend, then that percentage to deliver 10 million this year is harder, just because you've probably done the categories that are easy to do. Other categories are more recalcitrant. The number as a percentage goes up of the overall spend. I think it was, I mean, some of his respondents are European, but it's primarily US based. So, so that's what the picture looks like for this year in terms of the savings that organisations are being asked to deliver. And what I'm going to go on to look at for the rest of the talk is just moving beyond that cost reduction piece, because clearly, as I say, the cost reduction itself is somewhat self-limiting, and it's how additional value creation can be generated within the procurement space and procurement organisations. So I guess the traditional approaches to procurement are related to compliance and savings, and a lot of it is around those compliance measures. So, have we got the right number of bidders, using objective selection criteria, adherence to policy, driving spend under management. Obviously, these are all absolutely critical, but I say these are necessary, but they're not enough to move towards that value creation environment. And I don't know why, when I was putting this talk together, this line from T.S. Eliot, I don't know if there's any Eliot fans here, but came to mind from the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock is, I've measured out my life with coffee spoons. And this is all right, talking about measuring things in smaller and smaller increments. Obviously, we can measure much smaller than that these days than coffee spoons. But there's also the kind of, almost, I wouldn't say hopelessness, but that kind of, just sort of whiling away the time. And clearly I'm not implying that that's what's happening with procurement, but there are much bigger things that the profession is clearly looking to do and to deliver. So that's it's not enough. Why is it not enough? Because business is changing. There are so many pressures that are out there. There is a fundamental change in business need as organisations in general, with the growth of the likes of increasing outsourcing and the like. Organisations are procuring more from more diverse sources. There are increasing levels of regulation, whether in the public sector or the private sector. That is just seems to be a fact of life in this day and age. That has to be dealt with. There are greater expectation and demands on procurement, so for sure it's not just about the savings and compliance. There are CSR objectives, there are sustainability objectives that are having to be delivered against. So ultimately, there's greater risk, complexity, there's greater volatility. We've had the floods this year, we've had all the upheaval in Eastern Europe. There's always something that's creating demands and stresses on supply chains, which means that there's great challenges out there to ensure security within the supply chain. I think the point at the bottom there is business needs procurement to be a fundamental source of competitive advantage. And I think that is really true in this day and age. It's procurement in its own right. The procurement functions are a lever which organisations can use to actually enhance their position, enhance their competitiveness. And I believe that will be increasingly recognised going forward. So, the old versus the new, exhilaration versus extinction. Got this, our spend monster there is eating all the money. So yeah, the old way of doing things is, buy what you're asked for, what the business requires, react swiftly, do it on time, keep prices under control, jobs are good, and that's kind of secure procure. Yeah, it's secure for the individuals doing it. It keeps you in a job till you're ready to take the pension, but it's not really about going out there and grasping the opportunities. So the first one, that's what I call the value preservation model, if you like. Whereas the value creation model is all about pushing the boundaries, about focusing on the significant high-value projects. And a really important point is aligning the procurement function with the organisational objectives. So it's making sure that within purchasing departments we're focusing on those activities that are going to enhance the overall objectives of the organisation itself. So what does that require? This purchasing's new order. It requires a whole bunch of things that maybe weren't prevalent within purchasing organisations historically. Clearly, stakeholder engagement is really, really key. Being able to do that at multiple levels within the organisation, whether it's at business users, whether it's at board level, middle management, obviously suppliers, which has always been done. Individuals or within your procurement departments, the capability to be highly analytical is really critical. The financial analysis, being able to take something to the CFO, to the finance director, which is a cogent financial argument, and demonstrate the business case is really key. Clearly, excellent market knowledge, category managers is fundamental. It's also having those capabilities at the management levels, the higher level negotiation ability and creativity, I think. I suppose if you went outside of procurement and asked people what their typical picture of procurement might be, they may not figure creativity at the top of the list, but it really is fundamental. And it's about being able to find new answers to old problems, or answers to new problems, and having the sophistication to bring those to fruition. So last week I was talking with a procurement director in a large NHS trust. He and his department are under massive pressure to deliver cost savings, but they're working on a new product, working with a supplier, something that you might consider part of the furniture in terms of hospitals, but the product itself costs more, but they've been able to do a total cost analysis and show that they reduce patient times in the hospital, to improve patient outcomes, and to reduce the cost overall of the use of that product within their trust. And this is something which is most likely to be rolled out more broadly across the NHS. So that procurement director's done a fantastic job, and he's had to engage internally in particular. There's quite a few resistors within his logistics department who it means a change of practice for them. So all that is around that analysis, that engagement, the ability to be able to be flexible, reevaluate where you are, and really push on with objectives aligned with, in that case, the objectives of the trust, which is improve patient throughput ultimately. So there's also indications from our survey that strategic drivers are growing in importance too. So we often talk about this as a factor, but there's also a question of whether it really is happening when you look down on the ground in what departments are doing. So we asked of what are the most important drivers for procurement for you in 2014. Of course, cutting costs is still the number one in there. It always will be. That's the bread and butter for procurement. But interestingly, becoming more strategic actually rose up to second place in the rankings, which was actually quite surprised me because it'd been bubbling away there in the last couple of years, but it's very much there in the forefront as the next kind of priority after cutting costs. And another one which I've picked out on the graph there is board level visibility. So the numbers are small, but the increase is quite significant, almost a 50% increase in individuals saying becoming visible at board level is critical to our procurement activity this year. It won't be easy, certainly. It's all very well to say down we want to become more strategic. but there are clearly challenges along the way. And again, when we looked at the survey at what the most, or the highest challenges that organisations have, the biggest one, the purpley top right-hand corner there, moving from a tactical to strategic function. So it's one of the most important as an objective, but it's also seen as one of the most challenging. And combine that with probably that old one, which is insufficient resources and investment. That's a key one. And there's also the factor around a feeling for a significant number, the top left-hand segment there, about being seen as a barrier rather than enabler, which no one wants to see that. But again, it's coming back to these points around engagement and being able to demonstrate through results, really, that procurement is an enabler for the organisation and not a barrier. So some of the ways to take that step to the next level. First one, I think, these days is, and I would say this, wouldn't I, but is really about using technology. It is becoming much, much easier. And in a way, procurement is in quite a nice space because it's about buying for users and obviously managing that. Everyone at home these days is used to using e-commerce, so it's actually translating what's being used at home, whether it's Amazon, eBay or whatever, and using that in the work environment. So there aren't actually many other business functions where that actually applies in the same way. So I think that's quite nice. But overall, the procurement technology now is cloud-based and offers a low total cost of ownership. It has this compelling user experience, so it drives adoption. Integration is clearly key with systems. That is, with the open APIs, everything's becoming much more integratable and adoptable. There's really is a rapid time to value, and I think certainly if you speak to us and a lot of the companies downstairs, you'll see it's a very, very vibrant market with a lot going on, a lot of innovation, and a lot driving value for procurement organisations. But ultimately, that is about taking out the day-to-day stuff, the transactions, helping with the analysis, helping with the data. So it actually frees up time for procurement functions to be more strategic and focus on that strategic value. Something else, which is a bit of a vignette, this one from the survey, but there is, shown in here, is that organisations or procurement departments are becoming smarter in terms of their buying, so they're becoming more sophisticated, actually. So when we asked what are the most important factors in selecting a procurement solution, value for money was still there, very much at number one. But some of these other factors coming through, as I say, show that increasing sophistication. So customer service over the last 2 years has increased in importance by 48%. Data accuracy. Those of you that have been unfortunate enough to be at my talks before will know that I bang on about data all the time. This shows that actually the message may actually be getting through. It is so important. So 34% increase over the last 2 years, and an increase in the ranking of ease of use. So that's increased by 22%. So it's not just about the economics of it. Of course, there are, in the nature of the service, there's an online survey, so people tend to answer very rapidly. So it's stuff that's front of mind. So I think that really does reflect what organisations and individuals are thinking about. So the new procurement, it's no longer about just cost and risk reduction. So the traditional procurement, as we've seen, it's all about that cost down, risk reduction and spend compliance. That has to be there as a base layer before we move on to do anything else. We have to demonstrate that to our organisations that we're delivering that. What is the new procurement or the advanced procurement? There are many, many different ways in which procurement capabilities, procurement skills can be used in an organisation to deliver value. Some of those are there. I think Andrew, again, talked about some this morning. Clearly, something like demand management is very much core to procurement anyway. Cost structure transformation is another area where it's not just about talking to your suppliers about costs and working with them, but that can actually be used across a business. So if you extend the supply chain through the business, then there's the ability to work with your business, with your organisation, to help take cost out internally. And innovation, absolutely. So Obviously the more advanced organisations, I'm sure many here are working with suppliers to drive innovation in the products that are being brought into your organisation. Equally, those skills can be used internally on your own product development. So there really is a lot there to go out, and a lot of opportunity, and I think quite an exciting future for using those skills and capabilities. So just into the last couple of minutes now, you may be relieved to hear. So again, going back to the survey, where are we really? A snapshot of where we are on this path of moving towards the strategic capabilities. Firstly, looking at procurement effectiveness. So this is the traditional procurement, if you like, measuring, managing compliance with procurement decisions. So 63% of organisations are doing that effectively. Interestingly, I think 7% said they don't measure it at all, and the rest of the other 21%, they encourage compliance but don't actually do anything about it, don't enforce it. So in my view, only 63% are actually managing that compliance effectively. Moving on to the more strategic measures, and now you see the numbers are somewhat lower, so there is some way to go. So looking at supplier performance, this is systematically managing suppliers a key source of value for the business. So 28% of respondents are doing that. So well over 2/3 are still not there. Still got a long way to go. I can see some shaking heads. So I assume most of the people here are in the 28%, which is great. But just obviously highlighting what was in the survey. And then business alignment. So this is all about, so we've been talking about aligning the organisation or the procurement organisation with the overall organisation. So whether that's about business growth, whether it's about delivering better service within the public sector, whatever that may be. So only 32% have a procurement strategy that's well defined and aligned with business priorities. So yes, very much still work to do on those measures. So what is the vision? Just to summarise, yes, a surge in procurement optimism, a surge in results, fantastic. Still a lot to do. What does that involve? To move towards the next level and deliver that compelling procurement vision. Starting at the bottom there, it's defining the deliverables, driving out the savings, demonstrating the value. Next level is the stakeholder engagement across all levels in the organisation and the supply chain, and ultimately having that full alignment with organisational values. So yes, that's the results of our survey. I think there's some really fascinating information in there. If you would like more information on the survey, please come and grab me, because we've got a lot more detailed information. And if you'd like to participate in any future analysis surveys, be fantastic as well. And as I say, we're downstairs. You can grab me afterwards. I'm Jonathan Betts. Those are my contact details. Please feel free to contact me if you want to. Thank you very much.